Is it an optimistic take on the inevitability of death, or a glorification of suicide? Is the sound exemplary of Blue Öyster Cult's music, or is it an anomaly that deviates from the style of their discography? Will the timeless quality of its production continue to fool new listeners into thinking the song was recorded just yesterday, or will the future remasters need more cowbell? Don't Fear the Reaper was a hit from the day it was released through the filming of this video, and to be honest, that trajectory seems like it's here to stay. And for good reason. On one hand, the massive pop culture adoption and widespread use in media is the dream PR and promotional success story that almost anyone would want for their song. On the other hand, when the band producers showed up at the studio, they brought the thunder, a culmination of talent, advances in technology, and cooperation allowed for an unprecedented efficiency during the recording window. All in all, Don't Fear the Reaper is a staple in FM radio, a cornerstone inspiration for progressive rock, and a song heard throughout the world. And if you're part of just the 1% who's never heard this song or gotten it stuck in your head, then you're about to. Hello there, it's Warren Hewitt here. Hope you're doing marvellously well. Welcome back to another episode of the series. If you haven't already, please subscribe, and if you hit the notification bell, you'll be notified when we have a new video. If you're into production, you can go to producelikeapro.com and sign up for the email list and get a whole bunch of free goodies. By 1976, Blue Öyster Cult's fan base had stretched from shore to shore in the US, and the band toured regularly. Their three previous albums, Blue Öyster Cult in 1972, Tyranny and Mutation, 1973, and Secret Treaties in 1974 had given the band ample experience in rehearsing for studio recording sessions. Up until this point, the music was psychedelic, especially on their debut album. This style of rock remained on the two albums that followed, which also saw heavier sounds and darker thematic content imbued into the tracks. When it came to writing, ideas were conceived and developed in the live manner, typical of a jam band. The group prepared for their album recording sessions in similar live music rehearsals. Demos, if any, were done on a simple stereo recorder. However, each of the band members eventually got their hands on multi-track recorders, evolving their capabilities and songwriting approach altogether. Don't Fear the Reaper was the first song Dharma wrote on a tape recorder. In particular, the guitar idea for the main riff and the progression for the iconic bridge section.
Well, I wrote the bridge, and the backing track of the bridge, and that's pretty much the same as it was on my original TAC demo. The solo was improvised, was gotten in one take. Now, I don't do that all the time. I typically do a lot of takes and comp solos, like after I heard that's the way Jeff Beck did it. So, but that one went down at once. The band practiced the song for a while before we went into the studio. We didn't want to waste too much studio time. We wanted to be prepared. The riff of the Reaper was recorded on a Gibson ES-175 Blonde, beautiful. One of those jazz boxes that belonged to Murray Krugman. He says, why don't you use this on this record? And it's got a unique sound. And the lead was done on my SG, which was a 68 SG. At that time, it had the stock pickups on it.
Eric Bloom and Alan Lanier would end up supporting the guitar with backing parts. Dharma sang lead, with Eric and David Lucas providing background vocals. Alan and David also played keyboards, supported by the spongy bass playing of Joe Bouchard. The percussion section is an amalgamation of various contributions from David, Eric, and main drummer Albert Bouchard. Eric's sole contribution to the percussion section, however, was as the band's famed cowbell player. However, this has been contested by famed cowbell player David Lucas. When it came to producing the band, I would conduct. And to keep the tempo, keep the groove going, I just decided that the cowbell would put that pedal to the floor, which also goes against the testimony of famed cowbell player Albert Bouchard. Yeah, I was, and even though Eric thought it was him, I don't even remember him being there, because if he was there, he would have played it. He usually did the percussion. I'm not that great at percussion, as Eric is much better, and David Lucas thought that he did it, but it was just his idea, and he thought that he had come in when we weren't there. But that was for another song. he got the two songs mixed up, but I remember exactly what happened. It's normal for accounts to differ on the who, the what, and the when. As many of you may know, creating music is and can be quite often collaborative in nature. More so, all rules and plans might go out of the window when ad hoc ideas are conceived in the recording studio. However, it'd be interesting to know if any of the confusion was just the result of the iconic Saturday Night Live skit and the popularization of the cowbell in the song. But more on that later. Shelley Yakos, the engineer on the song, provided us with a great in-depth account of his experience mixing and recording this track. If you haven't seen our Inside the Song video, especially if you're into production, please check it out. The band credits him with achieving the unique, timeless sound, a mix that sits well with our ears, even to this day. What makes this feat even more impressive is that Shelley achieved this in the chaotic environment of three producers: Murray Krugman, Sandy Pearlman, and David Lucas.
Everybody contributed ideas. We tried pretty much every idea, because we're pretty open to input. But the path became clear fast. Yeah, there wasn't any dictators or Führers. David's biggest influence was he was a really musical guy, and Murray and Sandy were more the conceptual guys, the vibe guys. So.
Let's check out the iconic guitar part. Such an amazing guitar part. It's one of those guitar parts that every kid I knew at school had to learn. Absolutely fantastic. Now, what's interesting is when I spoke to Shelley about this, he said that last note has a feedback that goes on forever.
I heard the sustain is in the Guinness Book of Records as the longest sustain on any record ever. Which is...
If we go to these tracks here, you'll hear it. Absolutely superb. Just this extended feedback note. A masterpiece of production. An incredible guitar playing. Buck Dahmer, Don Rosa, is a wonderful, wonderful guitarist and completely inspiring for the time because he's got this sort of, psychedelic kind of way of doing it, but it's also rock. It's a really heavy rock, aggressive part, especially when he comes in once again with that really, really fast picking line. It catches the feedback. It's just absolutely superb.
I put a little bit of the effects on the guitars, on the drums. Not more than would get in the way in the mix, but enough to give it some life so that players hear it in their headsets and they hear it on the playback and they're inspired because it sounds closer to finished,
The level he must have been tracking at, and he's got to have either been in front of the amp or it's got to have been in the control room so loud that he was getting all of that feedback. I do know Shelley Yakos, who recorded this very well, and he loves musicians being in a room all performing together. So it could have been in front of the amp. I absolutely love Albert Bouchard's drumming on this. Superb. That consistent kick drum, that the whole time. And the plate, I presume it's a plate. It could have been a chamber, but I think it's a plate. It's just superb on the snare. The syncopation between the drums and the band during Buck's solo section is absolutely superb. So an incredible use of dynamics in the drum performance. I mean, he's really, really performing that. It is a band playing together at their peak. This was their creative peak. Absolutely superb. As we talked about earlier, a lot of rehearsal time, a lot of guys getting together and learning the song together, contributing great ideas together. Now, one of the things that really strikes me about this song, and so many people, is the vocals. It's a rock song. It rocks. And yet the vocals are just this beautiful.
All our times have come here, but now they're gone. Seasons don't fear the reaper, nor do the wind, the sun, or the...
I mean, it sounds like 60s pop, doesn't it? Da, 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 da. It's so pretty. You kind of expect a 12-string guitar, just da, 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 da. West Coast American, you know, just happy-go-lucky, strummy music with maybe some arpeggios with some nice, beautiful kind of pop, folky almost, vocals over the top. Instead, listen to it now.
We can be like they are. Baby, don't fear the reaper. Baby, take my hand. Don't fear the reaper. We'll be able to fly. Don't fear the reaper. Baby, I'm your man. La, 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 la. La, 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 la.
60s pop vocals, psychedelic, crazy rock guitar solos, the hookiest guitar part ever in the intro and all the way through the song. A great, great rhythm section with incredible dynamics. Albert's drums are so dynamic and so well performed, and the way his brother locks with him. All of these elements together make this such a unique sounding song. And it's like pop, rock, progressive, psychedelic music. It's all of the above rolled into one. Dharma claims the track is a love song, carrying a message that worrying about death is pointless because it's inevitable. However, the widely held cultural criticism that it glorifies and promotes suicide is, at least, understandable. The third verse is very obviously about suicide. But even the Romeo and Juliet section goes beyond simple allusions to the star-crossed lovers and their story when the backing vocals say, "We can be like they are." Ultimately, both lyrical views hold weight to their arguments. The popularity of the track alone carries the implication that a wide range of people across the planet were able to find their own interpretation, their own personal connection with the song, for their own personal reasons. Don't Fear the Reaper was first released on the 1976 Agents of Fortune album. That's not actually the version that most people know today. The original track featured a slow-building interlude with a horn section provided by Michael and Randy Brecker. The edited version, released as a single the same year, reached number 12 on the US Billboard Hot 100 and number 7 on the Canadian Top Singles list. In the UK, the original long version was released as a single and reached number 16 in 1978, beating the short version, which hadn't managed to chart in the UK at all. The track has since gone platinum in the UK. Being one of Blue Öyster Cult's top hits, live performances of the song were a given. But over the years, the band actually started to play the song in a higher key than the original release.
We played it in B instead of A minor for a long time, mostly just to get the vocal to cut better. And then a few years ago, we did the 40th anniversary of Agents of Fortune, and we put it back in the original key. Since we started using in-ear monitors, now we can hear ourselves and we can sing better, and we're softer on stage than we used to be. So now we do it in the original key again.
In 1976, Don't Fear the Reaper was awarded Song of the Year by Rolling Stone. In 2004, and again in 2010, the song found its way onto the 500 Greatest Songs of All Time list. Placements have ranged from lyrical quotes in Stephen King's novel The Stand to audio features and covers in movies like Halloween, The Stoned Age, X, Zombieland, and Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. Games like Rock Band, Returnal, and Prey, and of course, who could forget the 2000 Saturday Night Live skit? I have some incredibly fond memories of this song. Firstly, as a kid, other guitar players learning it and everybody swapping riffs, which is interesting because when I came back to think about it, I was like, how do you play it? I hadn't played it in years, but I knew it so instinctively. As soon as you hear it, you know what song it is. And it still sounds as amazing to me today as it did when I first heard it. Again, talking about those vocals, those angelic vocals floating over this rock song, which goes into a whole prog middle eight section. And then comes back to this really pop, da, 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 kind of sing-along chorus. The old studio I had, we rented to Sirius Satellite. They had built booths in part of our studio, and people would come in and be interviewed. And one of those people was Will Ferrell. So Will Ferrell comes in to be interviewed. And on his way out, we strategically placed a cowbell and a stick next to it, a drumstick next to it. And he walked out and he just paused and he kind of looked around, and everybody, all of the staff and everybody was standing out there like there's this a momentous occasion that Will Ferrell is there and there's a cowbell with a stick. So he was like, so you want me to play this? And he picks it up and just goes, doink, doink. And the whole place burst into laughter. The skit is iconic. But the song is even more iconic. This is a masterpiece of songwriting, a masterpiece of production. I mean, so interesting, just really enthralling. And I love all of the blends of all of the different genres in there. There's a blues, rock, guitar, meets psychedelic guitar part, meets super hooky, almost neoclassical feel with some prog in there, and you name it. This is one of the greatest songs of all time. And I feel very blessed that we got to talk to Buck Dahmer, Don Rosa, about this. And thanks ever so much for watching. If you have any other song ideas that you want us to cover, please list them down below. Please check out the other videos in the series. So long, farewell, auf Wiedersehen, au revoir, adios, ciao, goodbye. Tootsies.